Welcome to episode 770 of Apartment Hacker. This is Mike Burnett, Apartment Hackers. My mission to tease out human potential in the multifamily space. So I have a quick story for you today. Back in college, I would go home from the summer and I would go to work at Sears. Yes, Sears, that's Sears. And I actually worked in the lawn and garden department selling tractors, lawnmowers, hedge trimmers, weed whackers, etc. And one night, this gentleman comes in to the store. I was working the 6 to 9 shift. He comes into the store and he's looking around the lawn tractors, and he decides to make a purchase, actually the most expensive lawn tractor in the entire store. And during the course of our conversation, leading up to that time that he decided to buy the tractor, we started talking about the military. And at that particular moment in time, I was, let's say, barely into my 20s. I had a very poor opinion of the military because my experience with the military was that they were very arrogant and very overbearing with their sense of self. And I was, in hindsight, I can see that I was very uncomfortable. I was very immature in my way of thinking. But anyway, the point of the story is I started sharing my opinion very strongly, my adverse opinion of people in the military. And so we get up to the cash wrap, and the gentleman hands me a credit card, and I say that I need a form of identification so that I can validate, or I can run your credit card. He hands me a military ID, right? I grew up in an Air Force town. He hands me his Air Force ID. And he could see that I had turned 3 shades of red, or I turned white as a ghost, one of the two. And he said, look, I forgive you. You're young. You don't know. But let me ask you a question. He said, would you rather have an arrogant, I think I described them in terms of a-holes, right? So would you rather have arrogant a-holes out there defending your country, or a nebbish wallflower type? I said, point taken. And from that day forward, I had a great deal of respect for people in the military. Why do I tell this story? Because I think that there are cultures that exist within organizations, especially very large organizations, where there is one part of the business, and you see this in the multifamily space, that really drives the investment opportunity and putting the investments in place so that the operations side of a business can actually run those things and make the business viable, right? And so that particular culture, that particular area of the business demands a person that is really highly self-confident and exudes type A personality and is a hard driver of business and getting deals done in high-stakes negotiation situations, etc. And that culture is very different from a culture that is operational in nature and has to sustain things over long bits of time and has to rely and lean on soft skills and in deep levels of psychology and sociology, etc., to motivate, inspire, and drive people performance, right? There are two very different cultures that exist within under one roof in many cases in the multifamily space, and I know that it's an interesting trend that's gone on in our space for over a long bit of time, where you try to blend those two cultures into something you call one, whatever the name of the company is. I have a very opposite opinion of that, in the sense that you should not do that necessarily. You should run them independent of one another. Even if you're under one umbrella, you should have a culture that is conducive and supportive of operations, and you should have a culture that is supportive and conducive to getting deals done, right? And don't try to blend the two. Don't try to blur those lines, and don't try to pretend that those two cultures can be governed the same way, with the same strategy and with the same I already said culture, but with the same strategy. You can't do that, or at least my opinion is that you can't do that. But I'm interested in hearing what you have to say, because I think it's an interesting question, as I see more and more companies trying to blend those two things together. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon.